Hi, welcome to Warblog. Today I'm looking at the fall of Al-Bab. Now I'm not sure whether or not it has fallen, but it's certainly being talked about that way. In fact, I've only got one link up at the moment, no write-up, but just browsing at the Express article. ISIS bloodbath, Turkish troops execute 1,300 traced jihadists in brutal battles. Turkish soldiers have killed hundreds of more Islamic State jihadists as they sweep through Al-Bab in northern Syria in a major blow to the fanatical terror regime. No fancy adjectives in that, all that. The thing that appeals to me about the situation is sort of multifold, really. I think the first thing is it's sort of, whilst we know Turkey have been in for a while since Euphrates Shield, it's to my mind's eye they were always really there as sort of just support and guidance for their Turkish-backed militias, the Free Syrian Army. But it appears now that the Free Syrian Army aren't doing a lot, if they're there at all. I don't really know what the situation is, but it's now sort of, it's just my interpretation, but it's now sort of clear, or I'm inferring it, I'm reading it as is now Turkey as a fully blown belligerent in the Middle East situation, and so this is why, in the order of battle, it's Turkey. It's not the Free Syrian Army with Turkish support. So now we've got a new player, and incidentally, there's another article that I might link to called "War is Boring," and it's pro-regime forces in Syria are stretched thin and are fighting amongst themselves. 5 years into Syria's apocalyptic civil war, there is no more Syrian Arab army on the country's battlefield. So who's fighting for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad? The answer is a shocking one. Today, the forces fighting for the Syrian regime represent a hodgepodge of sectarian local militias, most of which do not fall under the regime's direct control. In other words, al-Assad is waging a war with virtually no troops of his own. That's also an aside, really. It's sort of, this is Turkey fighting in Syria, certainly not back for the Syrian army. And that "War is Boring" article is, it's interesting. I've only just sort of read it. I haven't really interpreted it in any way. But essentially, the thing about this battle is that it's sort of clearly got Turkey as a belligerent, so I won't labour that point too much. But also, it was sort of famous for its sort of, ISIS have had a couple of counterattacks now, but they're only really sort of small ones that don't amount to much. But they basically captured some Leopard tanks, and that was the big thing, I think, on some of the the news sites and the pictures of the 2 Leopard tanks. And the thing that struck me about that whole situation was how expensive these tanks are. I think they're like £20 million each, $20 million, and they added it all up. And when you sort of consider it all, it's you expect to lose some vehicles. They are losing humans. They're not throwing fireworks. They've got proper anti-tank missiles. They probably haven't got many of them, but on the ground, on that count, this is an anti-tank unit. So it's set up with ISIS on the first turn with anti-tank units, and we'll go into play mode. It's just something I've just sort of thrown the pieces together. We obviously, the fundamental features are that ISIS are in control of whatever this is, Al-Bab. They're surrounded by essentially what should be the Free Syrian Army with Turkish support. I've read a lot of things, so I don't really want to sound partisan in any way. Apparently, it's sort of what some people have been saying is that the Free Syrian Army didn't really support the tanks, and the tanks really are fairly vulnerable without infantry support. So that's why there's no infantry in there. And we've got 2 ISIS anti-tank units here. Now, I have modified the rules, and essentially, if it's anti-tank versus tank, this particular type, maybe I should reword the rules, because anti-tank is like artillery, but if it's artillery like a PaK 38 or something, anti-tank gun, then it will come under artillery, etc., etc. I mean, this anti-tank unit is essentially. I did try to do anti-tank in a previous game, and I used TOW, and basically maybe I should use the TOW units, but instead I basically just gave them an incredibly high defense. So if you attack them, they were really hard to get rid of. But this is actually anti-tank unit using anti-tank maths. So basically, if it's anti-tank versus tank only, without infantry support, so no infantry in there, essentially they get a +10 factor. So that's worth 10. That's worth 10. Now I did have this in light urban originally, but if you look at the map, it's it's a bit sparse. So I've actually removed that, and that removes also his doubling. So instead of being 8, he's now just 4. So I don't know what the result is going to be here, but we're going to essentially. I've set it up to replicate the ISIS take out these 2 Leopard tanks. I mean, 2 out of what a company, a lot of money, but I'm pretty sure that it's dwarfed by the expense of the conflict in general anyway. So we'll start off with just actually doing that. We've got infantry support, so let's just see what actually happens. I'm not going to use the rockets in this because I am basically trying to replicate things. What I'm actually going to do is not use the infantry in there, just to keep it pure, because if they succeed, this will retreat or be eliminated, and then the infantry can move in. So let's do the attack. Yeah. So basically, it was 5-to-1 odds, which is not brilliant. I mean, it's good, but it's not I mean, it could have gone the other way, but they got a good die roll, and they got a defender eliminated. So, from that one, they whacked themselves up to the 10, so 10, but because they had 2, they had a +10 factor on that, so that was 22 versus a 4, because I took the defensive terrain out. So that came up with quite a nice replication of what actually happened. So essentially what we've assumed there is that they've now essentially taken Al-Bab hospital. So let's actually... That's interesting. You can't actually move in there. Okay, well that's just as well really that I didn't commit them to the battle. So now it's basically just free play. The only thing to say is that the next sort of set of things that happen are that's incorrect. I'll have to modify that. The next sort of thing that happens is from turn 4 there's a lot of reinforcements arriving, because essentially I get the feeling that what happened there really irritated Turkey, and now they've really come in with a lot more firepower, including the air power, etc., etc. So, but what I'm more interested in doing is that's frustrating really, because I don't want to lose that. If it's only a 2, and it would be a fair fight in some regards. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put everything onto that. 6-to-1 odds, defender eliminated. And the irony is, all that artillery failed. Can you believe it? All of it failed, unless I didn't click that one. Now that sort of gives some protection to this anti-tank unit, because I do want to keep it. And so basically we've sort of replicated that situation there. Now the rest of it really is sort of a free play, what you sort of notice is there isn't really a lot of ISIS in there. We've got the regulars and we've got the irregulars, and I think it's the irregulars that are going to be calling the shots. But what we do have is insurgent units, and so it's really just a case of deciding what you want to do with the insurgents. And if you've not really listened to any of these overviews before, the insurgents can do the car bombs, and then that's what they're doing a lot of. So we can see some tank units here, some tank units here. Now, obviously, what we don't really want to be doing is moving our anti-tank units in the open to engage, because they're not long range. They have to be, they have to basically attack the hex, and it has to just be armor. So that armor is vulnerable, so it needs infantry in there to negate that times 10 multiplier on that. It basically means that the infantry, get between the tank and the units and take them out, with small arms fire, etc., etc. It's not a perfect system, but you can see what it's trying to do. There is another anti-tank unit in here. Basically, this is Al-Bab proper, which is fortified, and you've got a lot more to sort of to manoeuvre. We've even got some armour, and should be some mechanised somewhere. No, the mechanised is there. More rockets, insurgents. So I think we're going to try and see what we can do with these insurgents. They're not available yet. It's important to understand when they're available, and they're not. They're generally not available on the first turn, which is again a bit irritating. I think I'm going to leave all the air defence, because they've got 6 radius. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, there's nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's nothing that they can't reach, so they might as well stay in there and gain a little defence. Okay, so it's more insurgents. Well, I'm going to put some insurgents over here to try and take that out, and I'm also going to take I'm going to leave the armour because I want to. Okay, we'll protect him with those. There's not artillery there, so we'll put these guys in here. I want to move these into there and at least have something stacked in there. I think we're actually going to leave him there. We've sort of pretty much moved all of that. And we have this irregular unit here that could attack that, but I don't think I'm going to. Let's see whether we've got any support. Oh, we do actually have a fair number of units, so I don't know why he isn't active again. Oh, I think it's the other one. Okay. 4-1 and an exchange. And no effect on the artillery. Again, that's a bit suspicious. Okay, well, you win here and you lost there. So the Free Syrian Army held out there. We've only got well, less than a minute now. I'm not going to do this again. So I hope you sort of get the idea of what's happening there. I think it's, again, it's just another interesting scenario. I think that if you look at the headlines, it looks like Al-Bab has fallen. And I think if you look at the, if you actually look at the, I might as well commit myself to, the screenshots are now a little, well, crap. I've got a new computer and everything seems to be crap. Oh, some things are okay, but the screenshots are not coming out that great. But you know, we've got these F-16 Fighting Falcons, the F-16 DJ-192 Tiger Squadron, what I was saying is that a lot happens after the after sort of turn 4ish. I don't know why. We should actually have some air power. No, we haven't actually had their turn yet, have we? Okay, so that's the ISIS turn. So we've successfully accomplished that. The only thing I would say is on turn 4 or so, they will actually get their own tank company, which is essentially assumed to be that one. I mean, if you fail on that, then you get a tank company for no reason. But the thing is, if you fail on it, it just means that you didn't win as much. We know that you got the tanks, because that's what happened historically. So we'll end that turn. I'm just going to rush through this because I just want to sort of have a little blast. But so what I was trying to say is you get a lot of Turkish units coming on. I think it should be relatively easy, but like all games, they get tricky. You've got to do each little thing. So obviously that's a shock, and I did spend a few days, reeling from it. From what I read, I mean, I didn't read the basic headlines, but it was sort of like, oh, the Turkish are in disarray. ISIS have been fighting back and regaining territory, and and I mean, I don't really read too much into all these things, and now it seems they've won. So I think that 4 turns reflects that interim period. We've got some fighters here. I don't really know what I'm going to do with them, but I think I'm going to maybe take this out. And let's see what 1, because we've only got 2 little units in there. That was the anti-aircraft taking effect. I've still yet to do that. It's on the air combat system. No result. Well, we'll try with this one. 2 to 1 exchange. So they're now fatigue 1. So the question is, can we take them, and do we want to take them? Now, one thing that I think is interesting about this, and perhaps I should have thought this, and this is why games quite often are better when you play them at least once. There are gaps. There's more city than there is units. If ISIS wanted to actually cover everything, they would have to maybe give up that space and draw a line across there. These 4 units could form that line. For example, there's no point. This is like a point out here. They would have to form a line back here. What I'm trying to get to here is that ISIS are not really in a position to counterattack. I mean, they took out that armour. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see how this battle goes first. I'm just playing off the fly, so 7 to 1 odds. I mean, what else I'm getting to is ISIS really don't have a lot of manpower. It's quite deliberately, lots of small companies, fairly weak. So Al-Bab hospital has been taken over, but now they've regained it back. Maybe I shouldn't have had these units so close to hand, but that's the setup. I mean, that attack could have failed. What was the odds? 7 to 1. On 7 to 1, it probably would have been pretty difficult to have failed. Which would one of the reasons why maybe it should have been urban. And no, not enough movement. Move him in there. But what I'm going to try and do, well, I'm not going to try and do it because there's zones of control. So it's always good to remember the zones of control to have an effect. What I'm going to try and do here is get into the city. Now, putting myself so close to that is maybe not a brilliant idea, but I'm taking a chance based on the knowledge that I'm not I'm not in a position to think that far ahead myself. So I'm outthinking myself by assuming that I can't think that far, and let's see what that looks like next turn. I'd like to get into that hex, and I could if I went there, but I just can't get the movement. So what I'm actually going to do is this. Now this is a sort of, I think, a good battle to reflect the urban conflict. They don't really have a lot in there, but the Turkish forces, the Free Syrian Army, don't have a lot either. We've got the Turkish infantry, and we've got the Free Syrian Army, so that's who are not that tough themselves. So he's worth 2, so it's 2. It's 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 4 to 1. This should be a 4 to 1 plus the surround, maybe a 5 to 1. Let's see what this goes through. 4 to 1. So there's 2. There's 8. So there's 1.6 for the surround, which is a plus 20%. So that's actually quite a good result, and I think this is one of the things that I quite like about this game, in the sense that you can get results and you sort of think, well, okay, well, what does this look like in the next sort of BBC article or some sort of military report? Because that would have been an event. That's I don't like to sort of again just do these things and then just not think about what has actually happened. I mean, what has happened there, to some extent, probably nothing I could have done about it. He's retreated into position stupid. There's no way I would have retreated there. My retreat rules are not very good. As long as it's not a zone of control, it seems okay, and it starts from there and goes around the hexes, so you can almost predict where they're going to retreat. I will be changing that eventually, maybe in a year or so. But it wasn't too bloody. We can get the odds because we chose the odds, but they weren't easy odds to get. They will be a little easier, but I think in retrospect the ISIS unit should have retreated back. They can't afford to be losing units. They just don't have the units to actually maintain the whole of the city. I mean, if that falls, this whole chunk is gone. So that was a successful attack. We've successfully taken the hospital back. We're competing here, but we don't really have there's probably lots of firefighting going on between here. Lots of sort of 50 cal machine gun fire, sniper fire, ISIS doing what they do. Lots of reporters walking around photographing it all. So we've got this group over here, and what do they want to do? Well, the first thing we're actually going to do is put this armour with this infantry. That will stop the tanks from getting him, the anti-tank stuff. Although it's gone down here, we don't know that. I can't see any major opportunities here, but I do want to combine, and I know you can only move one, so I'm going to do that. So basically I'm keeping that front, but I'm combining the armour with the infantry to stop the anti-tank threat, which is now here, from doing anything. And I'm not going to do anything else there. I'm trying to play maybe strategically and biding my time. There's no point in just rushing in. It's now ISIS. Now the thing with ISIS is that there's not really much that they can do. He will move back into there. unfortunately, the two army units are not isolated anymore, so we'll have to bide our time on that one. Well, we've got rockets, and I'm going to do some damage on this unit. No effect. 1 to 2 odds. Too small. I'm tempted to do a counter strike here. Well, the first thing is we've got insurgents and they're available, so let's use them. And we're going in here now. Even if I'm unfamiliar with insurgent rules, essentially we can target, so we can go either after the infantry, which is a lower value unit, so it'll be easier to get, or the armour. It's going to be tougher, but probably more beneficial. So basically we're driving along with a big truck with lots of welded plate on the side, travelling at 3 miles an hour, and as it drives, everyone runs away. Even the tank crews get out and run away, because when the thing goes up, the shock wave is quite stupendous. I mean, if you've seen the videos of these suicide bombers, you know, I mean, even if you survive, there's this tremendous shockwave, and people just flee. It's quite interesting, because you could drive along in one that didn't have any bombs, and when everyone fled, get out and do whatever you want, untie everyone's shoelaces, as they say. But anyway, we're going to try this insurgent attack on the armour. That's a first. It's been a while since I had one of these. The insurgent action succeeded, and essentially all that means is now he's depressed 3. But the significance of being depressed 3 is that he can never recover beyond 2, so he will always be at least 1. You can't completely destroy units. I mean, basically what was happened there, we just taken out another 3 or 4 Leopard tanks. I mean, we only took 2 over here. The rest of them routed. They became so disorganised they were no longer combat efficient. They're probably still driving off along this way. They didn't all die. That's not how the game works. Unfortunately, he's got a negative movement, and that shouldn't actually be happening. So I'll have to put that on my list of things that I'll do next year. Almost literally, because now he should move away. Because he's not going to be available for another 3 turns. However, that means that he's vulnerable. So what we're now going to do is we're going to do an ISIS counterattack. I'm going to put in these irregulars. So this is their major offensive, and we've only got a few seconds left. The artillery did nothing, and then exchange. Well, that wasn't good. What were the odds? 2 to 1. That wasn't bad. Okay, well, it's nearly 15 minutes, as they go so quickly. I probably won't do another one, but it's a shame, really, because you get a lot more. I don't think ISIS is going to do many more attacks, more units. And, if you feel like playing it, sign up and give it a go. Cheerio. Okay, well, I decided to go for another round, mainly because I made some changes. One of the changes I made was on the air defence results. We probably won't see too many more units being quartered or halved, but if we do, we should see the image. And but hopefully, more importantly, insurgent units will not be affected by zones of control at all, in fact, which is probably a reasonable way of doing it. There are a few other things I want to do, but I won't go into that anyway. So, whose turn is it? What's happening? I'm not sure whether that was a good thing to do. I mean, that was because it's drawn them out there, but there's not much that can really not monopolise on it. There's not much that can really sort of take advantage of that advance. And I don't think we're going to be seeing ISIS do too many attacks. They're going to be on the defensive, really. So we'll do the end turn. Maybe I've missed something. I don't know. We should have moved that. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I should have moved that. Maybe I should have fired some more of this artillery and rockets. Not thinking. Okay, well, no worries. So, Depression 4, that armour. Maybe some airstrikes on this. Ha! It worked. Do you see? That's fortunate. It's pretty rare that the air defence actually works. Maybe there's too much air defence. I mean, look, there's 4 lots of 6. It's strange, actually. These air defence units, they're 6 on attack. And you would have thought that there would be 6 on defence. And it's probably actually my oversight. And I think it's just because of the way I did it originally. So that when they attack, I can't get my head around it, whether there should be, the 6 should be on the attack, offensive, because that's what they're doing. They're all the defensive things. But it doesn't matter, that's what they are at the moment. And that's what's taking effect. But that was aborted. Now, it wasn't shot down, so you can use it again. But this is one of the reasons why they have multiple. Instead of putting this on unit with 20 flights, I'll put it on with 10, and then at 10 turns they'll get a reinforcement of 10. So they get it in 2 sways. So if it does get shot down, at least they've not lost our pair power for the whole turn. Let's go for another one. That was a 1-to-1. So we've got a DR on that, and it's probably best to do it on the irregulars because they're actually quite hard to damage otherwise. So this unit I think we could probably go for again. Well, 5-to-1. That was a DR. He really likes leaving the city. Depression 4. Only this time we can take that spot because we're a long road. I don't want to think too much over here. Over here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back. I'm not going to move there. I'm going to hold this ground. And I'm going to consolidate the hospital. And I'm going to do that, which is crazy. the only unit actually trying to enter the city. The reason I'm not attacking on this side is because I haven't really got my head around what I want to do. I want to speed the game up a bit, but I also want to do what I quite often always want to do, and that is to do the sort of the falling back type thing. You know, I mean, if ISIS want to follow me out into the desert, fine, because it's not good for them. So I think ISIS is going to have to go back into the city now. So this was a good move, and now he'll be able to recover. Now he's depression 4. That's not good, but we don't want to lose that artillery. We don't want to lose anything really. But I think when turns pass, we'll see that Turkey really going to be spoiled for hardware. Okay, ISIS. Well, he is fairly depressed, so I think he's going to move away, which is an interesting thing to do because it's sort of, well, what about all these supply lines? Over here, let's see what we can do with the rockets. No effect. 1 to 2 odds against that. 2, 2. I don't understand why that was a 1 to 2. Oh. Oh, I know why. I keep forgetting all these little stupid things. It's not perfect, but because he's not got any surround, he's at 0.9 factor. He loses 10%. So he's only worth 1.8, which is less than 1 to 1. So that's a 1 to 2. There you go. Okay, now what we're going to do here, we're going to try these insurgents. In fact, we should have moved more of these insurgents out, but we've got plenty. Let's use these ones first. Insurgents. So the insurgents are moved to there, and his movement is -6. That shouldn't have happened. Oh well. Assault roll of 11. 25 capture roll. So the insurgent action failed, but was not caught. Go for the armour. Insurgent action failed, but was not caught. Right, let me pause that for a sec. Okay. Hopefully I've sorted this insurgent thing out, so let me see if I can find another insurgent. There we go, got one there. There he is. Oh, let's just... Oh, it didn't work, didn't it? Okay, we'll forget that. Can't figure it out. Oh well. Incision action failed, but was not caught. Okay, well, he's still recovering. Okay, so here's a little close quarter action. Defender retreat. He's retreated there. Well, they're not having a good time of it. Certainly not. Defender eliminated. Okay. Well, that sort of reflects the first part of this battle where the ISIS were sort of making offences and winning. They've routed these units. They've not done so well over here, but they took the hospital, but now they've lost it. Maybe I could have done an attack there, but there's a lot of hardware in there. I don't think really stand a chance. It was just that singular opportunity with the armour being alone that worked in their favour. They don't really have the strength of numbers to really do much. So, end the turn there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to end that turn as well. And then I'm going to end that turn, just because I sort of want to speed up just a little bit. Well, maybe that's not much, but we've got some special forces now, you see, and we've got 2 armour units. The next turn we've got a lot more other units, so and we've got the Cobra. I put the Cobra in because I was watching a video on, I think it was the Express, and they had the Cobra in there, so there you go, we've got the Cobra in here. I do try to keep an eye out on, things you can see, because there's no sort of like official order of battle. This is not the Second World War. I've got a, I'm not going to do any more movement, so I'm just going to chit chat, but I've got, seeing as I'm not going to do any more, because I'm not going to do any more turns. Let's end that turn. And end that turn. Yeah, see, it suddenly starts to get interesting, you see. So don't say it doesn't get interesting. Look at all that. This is what I'm saying. It suddenly, sort of think, well, they're going to win. They had a setback, they got angry, and they come back in a vengeance. Interesting game. I'm not going to play it, it'll take forever. But if you want to play it, you can sign up. See how. It's one of these games where I think it's really seeing how quickly you can do it and how efficiently you can do it, not if you can do it. I assume that's going to be the case. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. I'll speak to you later. Bye.